name is Ben Brearley. I'm the founder of Thoughtful Leader, here to bring you some short, sharp leadership advice once again. Today's video is all about remote working, and it's something we've obviously been through with the COVID-19 pandemic, and many places around the world still struggling with that at the moment, and in fact it seems to be getting worse. So my thoughts go out to you out there. I hope you're safe and well. But what this brings me to is the topic of remote working. And we've all had to deal with that in some respect as a part of the pandemic, and it's something we've never really seen before. Remote working has been something that people do, but it certainly hasn't been the norm, and it has really turned our workplaces on their heads, as people now see that as one of the more normal ways of going about things because of the pandemic we've been hit with. So in many ways, I think this is a good opportunity to embrace different ways of working rather than do the same old thing we've always done. But I want to talk about some things to keep in mind when remote working and how to do this better, how to get more comfortable with it. If you feel like you need to see your team in person to know that they're working, you're going to have a problem, because trust is a big factor, especially when you're remote working. If you believe that you need to be standing there looking at your team or they won't do any work, you're going to have trouble. So there's a few ways to address this. The first one I like to think about is to work for outcomes and not hours. So if one of my team members works for 10 hours and another one works for 6, but they get the work done that they were required to do, I don't really care. So what you want to be doing is setting a more structured program of work for your people so they can achieve the outcome you need, rather than just sit there at their computer for X number of hours. Because we all know that productivity in remote working can suffer. Some people don't work very well remotely, other people love it. But when you're sitting in front of your computer all day, you're not interacting with people, you can lose productivity. So what you want to do is work for outcomes, not hours. So that means being more structured in the way you work. It means making your team deliver deliverables or artifacts or documents or whatever it is, or widgets, and setting the targets that way, rather than setting a target of you will work for 8 hours in front of your computer, because it shouldn't really matter whether they do that or not. The second thing to keep in mind is you need to have a way of tracking that work. So whether you use some sort of collaboration system, even if it's a shared spreadsheet, whatever it might be, you need to have some way of maintaining visibility of the work that your team is doing. Without that, you'll be flying blind, you'll feel a bit uncomfortable, and you'll be reliant on just updates from people telling you what they've done. But of course, if you're working for outcomes and not hours, then you can just get them to send you the work as well, and you'll be able to keep track of it that way. But it's good, and it's obviously really good practice to have some sort of task management system or collaboration tool that you can use. And many companies will have this now, particularly as part of the pandemic. If they didn't before, they certainly do now. The next thing to do is to make rules in your team about collaboration and communication. When we're in the office together, we often bump into each other, we have a chat, we talk about what our struggles are, we collaborate naturally because our team members are right over there. I can walk over to them and have a chat to them about what's going on. When you're remote, you can't do that as easily, so you need to set some rules around communication and collaboration. In other words, we will use this tool to track this work. We will add in a record here every time we complete this thing. We will always be on Slack or Teams or whatever collaboration platform it is, and we will set ourselves to being available when we're not in meetings, for example. Because we're communicating differently now, we're in a remote environment where we can't see each other, you need to set some rules around that collaboration and communication, more so than when you can naturally do it in the same work environment, when you just bump into people and can have a chat. Another thing to do is to become more structured in your day. Instead of leaving it to chance, you want to organise regular catch-ups with your team so that you can assess how they're going, ask them questions. These one-on-one engagements are really important, particularly when you're remote working, because you might not naturally see that person. If you don't have a meeting with them for all week, then if you don't organise another catch-up with them to actually individually work out how they're going and see if they've got any challenges and understand how they're feeling, then you could be in trouble of just losing connection with your team. So those regular communication forums are really important, and far more important than when you're in a common work environment, because you can all just say, You know, you can go, hey Bob, how you going? You know, and you can just have a chat to people quite easily. You cannot do that obviously remotely. So you need to build that into the structure of the way you're going to work. Even if you have catch-ups that involve social time, even if you organize a team catch-up remotely online where you don't really talk about work and you just discuss, you know, something fun or other different topics. The last thing I would definitely recommend is to be aware of mental health when you're remote working. Some people don't handle remote working very well. Some people aren't set up for it very well at home, and it can cause a toll on your mental health, particularly because it can feel isolating and lonely to sit in your computer all day and not talk to anyone or see anyone in person. A lot of people feed off that energy that they get from other people, and it makes them feel more connected. So mental health is a big thing to focus on. And I would recommend when you're having one-on-ones with your team members, I would recommend asking them about how they're coping with the situation, looking for ways to engage with them more, getting a sense to how they're coping with their workload, how they're coping with the remote work situation, actually having a key focus on that, because ignoring that can be a big mistake. It can cause real trouble with mental health issues. And obviously mental health issues are rising and a major concern anyway, but the remote working situation really exacerbates that. So there's some of my ideas for handling remote working in your team. I hope you like the video. If you do, please subscribe by pressing that red button, and I will see you next week in the next video.